and all of 'em are going west, Uncle Judd, Lordy, and June, and all our kinfolks. You didn't know that?" "No," repeated Hale. "Well, they ain't closed all the trades yit," he said, "and they might not go maybe afore spring. The Fallons say they air done now. Uncle Judd don't believe 'em, but I do, and I'm thinkin' I won't go. I've got a little money, and I want to know if I can't buy back Uncle Judd's house and a little ground around it. Our folks is tired of fightin', and I couldn't live on the other side of the mountain after they air gone and keep as healthy as on this side. So I thought I'd see if I couldn't buy back June's old home, maybe, and live there." Hale watched him keenly, wondering what his game was, and he went on. "I know the house and land ain't worth much to your company, and as the coal vein has petered out, I reckon they might not ax much fer it." It was all out now, and he stopped without looking at Hale. "I ain't askin' any favors, least not of you, and I thought my share of Moss Farm might be enough to get me that house and some of the other land." "You mean to live there yourself?" "Yes." "Alone?" Dave frowned. "I reckon that's my business." "So it is. Excuse me." Hale lighted his pipe, and the mountaineer waited. He was a little sullen now. "Well, the company has parted with the land." Dave started. "Sold it?" "In a way, yes." "Well, would you mind telling me who bought it? Maybe I can get it from him." "It's mine now," said Hale quietly. "Yourn?" The mountaineer looked incredulous, and then he let loose a scornful laugh. "You gonna live there?" "Maybe." "Alone?" "That's my business." The mountaineer's face darkened, and his fingers began to twitch. "Well, if you're talking about June, hit's my business. Hit's always been, and it's always will be." "Well, if I was talking about June, I wouldn't consult you." "No, but I'd consult you like hell." "I wish you had the chance," said Hale coolly. "But I wasn't talking about June." Again Dave laughed harshly, and for a moment his angry eyes rested on the quiet mill pond. He went backward suddenly. "You went over there in Lonesome with your high notions and your slick tongue, and you took June away from me, but she wasn't good enough for you then. So you filled her up with your fool notions and sent her away to get her poor little head filled with furrin' ways so she could be fittin' to marry you. You took her away from her daddy, her family, her kinfolks, and her home, and you took her away from me. And now she's been over there eatin' her heart out, just as she ate it out over here when she first left home. And in the end she got so highfalutin that she wouldn't marry you." He laughed again, and Hale winced under the laugh and the lashing words. "And I know you air eatin' your heart out too, 'cause you can't get June, and I'm hoping you'll suffer the torment o' hell as long as you live. God, she hates you now. Think you're all knowin' the world and women and books." He spoke with vindictive and insulting slowness. "You being such a fool." "That may all be true, but I think you can talk better outside that gate." The mountaineer, deceived by Hale's calm voice, sprang to his feet in a fury, but he was too late. Hale's hand was on the butt of his revolver, his blue eyes were glittering, and a dangerous smile was at his lips. Silently he sat, and silently he pointed his other hand at the gate. Dave laughed. "Do you think I'd fight you here? If you killed me, you'd be elected county jedge. If I killed you, what chance would I have of getting away? I'd swing for it." He was outside the gate now and unhitching his horse. He started to turn the beast, but Hale stopped him. "Get on from this side, please." With one foot in the stirrup, Dave turned savagely. "Why don't you go up in the gap with me now and fight it out like a man?" "I don't trust you." "I get you over in the mountains some day. I've no doubt you will, if you have the chance from the bush." Hale was getting roused now. "Look here," he said suddenly. "You've been threatening me for a long time now. I've never had any feeling against you. I've never done anything to you that I hadn't to do. But you've gone a little too far now, and I'm tired. If you can't get over your grudge against me, suppose we go across the river outside the town limits, put our guns down, and fight it out, fist and skull." "I'm your man," said Dave eagerly, looking across the street. Hale saw two men on the porch. "Come on," he said. The two men were Bud and the Newtown sergeant. "Sam," he said, "this gentleman and I are going across the river to have a little friendly bout, and I wish you'd come along, and you too, Bill, to see that Dave here gets fair play." The sergeant spoke to Dave. "You don't need nobody to see that you get fair play with them two, but I'll go along just the same." Hardly a word was said as the four walked across the bridge and toward the thicket to the right. Neither Bud nor the sergeant asked the nature of the trouble, for either could have guessed what it was. Dave tied his horse and, like Hale, stripped off his coat. The sergeant took charge of Dave's pistol and Bud of Hale's. "All you've got to do is keep him away from you," said Bud. "If he gets his hands on you, you're gone. You know how they fight, rough and tumble." Hale nodded. He knew all that himself, and when he looked at Dave's sturdy neck and gigantic shoulders, he knew further that if the mountaineer got him in his grasp, he would have to gasp enough in a hurry or be saved by Bud from being throttled to death. "Are you ready?" Again Hale nodded. "Go ahead, Dave," growled the sergeant, for the job was not to his liking. Dave did not plunge toward Hale as the three others expected. On the contrary, he assumed the conventional attitude of the boxer and advanced warily, using his head as a diagnostician for Hale's points, and Hale remembered suddenly that Dave had been away at school for a year. Dave knew something of the game, and the Honorable Sam straightway was anxious. When the mountaineer ducked and swung his left, Bud's heart thumped and he almost shrank himself from the terrific sweep of the big fist. "God," he muttered, for had the fist caught Hale's head, it must, it seemed, have crushed like an egg-shell. Hale coolly withdrew his head not more than an inch, it seemed to Bud's practised eye, and jabbed his right with a lightning uppercut into Dave's jaw. That made the mountaineer reel backward with a grunt of rage and pain, and when he followed it up with a swing of his left on Dave's right eye and another terrific jolt with his right on the left jaw, and Bud saw the crazy rage in the mountaineer's face, he felt easy. In that rage Dave forgot his science, as the Honorable Sam expected, and with a bellow he started at Hale like a cave-dweller to bite, tear, and throttle. But the lithe figure before him swayed this way and that like a shadow, and with every side step a fist crushed on the mountaineer's nose, chin, or jaw, until, blinded with blood and fury, Dave staggered aside toward the sergeant with a cry of a madman. "Gimme my gun! I'll kill him! Gimme my gun!" And when the sergeant sprang forward and caught the mountaineer, he dropped weeping with rage and shame to the ground. "You two just go back to town," said the sergeant. "I'll take keer of him, quick," and he shook his head as Hale advanced. "He ain't going to shake hands with you." The two turned back across the bridge, and Hale went on to Bud's office to do what he was setting out to do when young Dave came. There he had the lawyer make out a deed in which the cabin in Lonesome Cove and the acres about it were conveyed in fee simple to June, her heirs and assigns forever. But the girl must not know until, Hale said, her father dies, or I die, or she marries. When he came out, the sergeant was passing the door. "Ain't no use fightin' with one of them fellers that-a-way," he said, shaking his head. "If he whoops you, he'll crow over you as long as he lives, and if you whoop him, he'll kill you fust chance he gets. You'll have to watch that feller as long as you live, 'specially when he's drinkin'. He'll remember that lickin' and want revenge for it till the grave. One of you has got to die some day, sure." And the sergeant was right. Dave was going through the gap at that moment, cursing, swaying like a drunken man, firing his pistol and shouting his revenge to the echoing gray walls that took up his cries and sent them shrieking on the wind up every dark ravine. All the way up the mountain he was cursing. Under the gentle voice of the big pine he was cursing still, and when his lips stopped, his heart was beating curses as he dropped down the other side of the mountain. When he reached the river, he got off his horse and bathed his mouth and his eyes again, and he cursed afresh when the blood started afresh at his lips again. For a while he sat there in his black mood, undecided whether he should go to his uncle's cabin or go on home. But he had seen a woman's figure in the garden as he came down the spur, and the thought of June drew him to the cabin in spite of his shame and the questions that were sure to be asked. When he passed around the clump of rhododendrons at the creek, June was in the garden still. She was pruning a rose bush with Bub's